All right, I will call this Thursday, December 12th, Design Review Board meeting to order. I'll request staff confirmation that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes, I can confirm the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
Thank you. Item 1.3, roll call.
All right. So we'll go ahead and call roll. Board Member Cates.
Present.
Board Member Herman.
Present.
Board Member Freeland. Board Member Nelson. Chair Manley.
Present.
We have 3 of 5 appointed members, so we have a quorum and we can proceed with today's business.
Thank you. Moving to new business, item 3.1.
Do we need to approve the minutes?
Oh, goodness, excuse me. I skipped a minutes. Item 2.1, approval of minutes. Were there any changes or corrections from board members?
I move we approve the minutes from
I
October
second.
24th.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we can move to item 3.1. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Chair Manley. Item 3.1 is application CC 24-18, filed by Brian Guyette on behalf of the Yard, requesting approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow the placement of an accessory storage structure or painted shipping container at the north end of the parking lot serving the baseball training facility known as the Yard. And the subject property is addressed as 138 South 4th Street. And I will be presenting the staff report today. So the buildings at the northwest corner of 4th Street and Walnut in downtown, now addressed as 138 South 4th Street, were constructed in 1929 for a lumberyard operation. In the 1960s, the buildings were occupied by a heating and air contractor and later were briefly used as a solar energy product facility. From 1987 until 2021, the property was used as a construction warehouse for Bill Medina Construction. In 2021, the Yard located at this address, and they have had multiple board actions since then. In 2021, they came for their initial exterior design and renovation of the property. In August of 2023, they came to the Design Review Board for a 3-part proposal that included painting the for modifying the northern built facing facade, as well as painting the facade black, and then painting their logo and a base on the building as well. So all of those things were heard in the fall of 2023, and that brings us here today to this item. The Yard baseball facility has been open and in operation at the northwest corner of 4th Street and Walnut since 2021 and has a need for additional weather-protected storage on the property. In lieu of constructing a new storage building to accommodate their storage needs, the Yard is proposing to place a shipping container at the north end of their existing parking lot located along Walnut Street between 4th and 5th Street. The proposed 20-foot by 8-foot by 8-foot shipping container would be painted black and would be placed in the parking lot with the 20-foot side facing Walnut Street. As proposed, the shipping container would be placed about 70 feet north of Walnut Street. Because this property is located within the Business Improvement District, review and approval of the proposed detached accessory storage structure is required by the Design Review Board before a building permit can be issued for the detached accessory storage structure. The Design Review Board is authorized to grant a certificate of compatibility if, upon a vote of majority of its members, the project is found to comply with the policies and guidelines contained in the design guidelines for downtown Salina. The design guidelines make the following recommendations in regard to new construction, which, since this is a new storage building, that would fall under. The material should appear similar to those used traditionally. The traditional material downtown is brick, and When the new material is not that traditional material, it should be considered on a case-by-case basis, and if used, should appear similar to those used traditionally and should be detailed to provide human scale. The design guidelines also make the following recommendations in regard to color. The facade should read as a single composition, and the paint colors on storefronts, trim, and upper story openings should be related to the overall color of the building, and the black painting of the storage building does match the overall black of the rest of the property. So, outdoor storage is not a permitted use in the C4 Central Business District. Therefore, any accessory storage must be contained within a permanent building on the property. The applicant is proposing to anchor the proposed shipping container to the parking lot with concrete anchors. The anchoring method would need to be reviewed and approved by the building official before placement on the site to confirm that the storage is properly anchored. Additionally, when reviewing accessory structures placed on residentially zoned lots, staff utilizes an accessory compatibility checklist to evaluate whether the proposed structure is compatible with the primary structure on the lot. In this checklist, a scoring system has been developed for the purpose of determining the visual compatibility of a proposed accessory structure with the principal residence on the property. Under this system, 1 point is given for each design factor that is achieved by the proposed accessory structure, and a minimum of total of score of 3 out of 5 points is required to be a determination of compatibility. And so on a residentially zoned property, we would do this for a garage, a carport, a storage shed, or workshop. And while this is not a residentially zoned property, we still conducted this exercise to help give you an idea of compatibility with the overall site. So the 5 criteria are as follows. The predominant building material that is used for the siding of the accessory structure matches the use on the principal residential dwelling, or in this case, commercial building. The proposed shipping container has metal siding, which does not match the brick and masonry of the proposed principal building, or of the principal building. 2, the predominant material that is used for the roofing of the accessory structure matches the use on the principal residential dwelling. The predominant material that is used for the roofing of the accessory structure, which would be metal in this case, matches that used on the does not match the material, of the principal building. The roof style, its orientation and roof pitch matches that used on the principal residential dwelling. The roof style, orientation, and roof pitch of the proposed shipping container do not match that of the principal dwelling or building. And the sidewall height, as measured, of the accessory structure is less than or matches the height of the principal residential, or in this case, commercial structure. The proposed shipping container is 8 feet tall and is less than the height of the principal building. And finally, the paint or finish color of the major exterior elements and trim match the finish colors on the principal building. And the proposed shipping container is proposed to be painted black, which would match the finish colors of the principal building and the fencing on the covered practice field. So while the compatibility checklist is specifically applicable to residential accessory structures, the proposed shipping container would meet 2 of the 5 compatibility criteria, suggesting that the shipping container as proposed, without any modifications outside of painting it black, is not compatible with the rest of the buildings and development on the site. In review of the project for compliance with the design guidelines for downtown Salina, staff is unable to recommend approval of the proposed shipping container storage building as proposed. It appears to staff the following findings can be made to support denial of the proposed storage building. The material metal of the proposed storage building is not visually compatible with the predominant materials of downtown Salina. And these can be found on page 7 of your staff report. 2, the shipping container storage building only meets 2 of the 5 criteria in the accessory structures compatibility checklist. And 3, the proposed location is directly visible from Walnut Street and no aesthetic enhancements to the container or visual screening is being proposed. If the design review board disagrees with staff's suggested findings in this case and wishes to approve the placement of the black painted shipping container as an accessory storage building, but wishes to avoid setting an unfavorable precedent, staff would offer the following alternative findings. The yard property is unique compared to other downtown properties because black is the predominant color on the property. The yard's location is unique compared to that of other downtown properties. The yard faces 4th Street, which contains railroad tracks and has more of an industrial type character than other streets in traditional downtown storefronts. This finding has been used in other cases with the yard. It is a rather unique property in downtown Salina. And finally, the proposed shipping container would be set back 70 feet from Walnut Street. It would not be readily available from the street. So following any additional information presented at the meeting and discussion, the Design Review Board would have the following options in consideration of this application. 1, they could approve the storage building as proposed. 2, they could postpone consideration of the application. 3, they could deny the proposed storage building upon the suggested findings that the metal shipping container is discouraged by the design guidelines. Yes. And so, since the design guidelines for downtown Salina suggest that the metal shipping container does not match the predominant materials of downtown Salina, staff is unable to recommend approval for a storage building and would therefore recommend option 3. Staff would note that if the board wishes to approve, the proposal must be very careful about making its findings because it could set an unfavorable precedent for future cases. And following review of any alternate design or additional information presented, if the board wishes to approve the yard storage building under option 1, staff would recommend the following conditions of approval. If there are any significant changes to the exterior modifications, those will be presented to board's administrative staff to determine whether any additional review is needed. And 2, anchoring plans must be provided to the building official for review and approval before placement and anchoring of the shipping container takes place. And with that, staff is available for any questions.
Thank you for that report. That was very well done. I had a few questions. I'll kick this off and then hand it over. You guys can jump in at any moment. You mentioned outdoor storage was not allowed in the C4 district. Define outdoor storage. Is this literally a shipping container? Is this just outdoor with maybe a roof on it?
Well, any other, I will give you an example. The Walmart store, the Dillon store, those are zone C3 shopping center district. They do not allow outdoor storage. Therefore, Walmart or Dillon's cannot put a shipping container on their property because that's considered to be outdoor storage. And so the only thing that makes this not outdoor storage is if it's anchored to the ground and becomes a storage building.
Okay.
But just if someone places a storage container in their property, which we have a number of around in town, they have to be in a zoning district that allows outdoor storage. But you cannot have we've had plumbing contractors, electrical contractors in the downtown area, but they do not have outdoor storage of their equipment or pipes or any of those things. All of it is inside the building. So we also have buildings and properties that have some accessory outdoor storage. The Sonic Drive-In has a storage building, and they also have an outdoor cooler, but those are buildings permanently affixed to the ground. So the distinction here is if this is an accessory building, then it's not outdoor storage. If it's not anchored and permanently attached, then it would be considered outdoor storage.
Thank you. My other question was in regard to trash enclosures. Sometimes you see them and sometimes you don't. I know this isn't a trash structure, but it's...
We'll hand out for you what the design guidelines say about that. And the quick answer to that is that if we know about them up front and they're part of a site plan, then they're enclosed. And if they've just been delivered to the site and they weren't involved in the original site plan, then they're probably not enclosed, because the companies that do those and deliver them to the site tend not to want to build an enclosure around it. But we'll take, for example, the field house project or the alley project downtown. In both those cases, the design review board looked at how the building was situated on the site. Those were new buildings, there was parking, there were driveways, and as part of that, they submitted a plan for where their trash containers were going and the plan for enclosing those. And so when they're known about up front, when they're part of the original plan that the board's reviewing, then they are screened. If they just are delivered to the property and no one knows anything about it, then it becomes a enforcement matter. But the design guidelines call for them to be screened, and we don't have enough of them and they're not large enough, but situated throughout downtown are a number of what city refers to as trash corrals located in city-owned parking lots, and inside those corrals are the trash dumpsters that are used by restaurants and other businesses downtown. So the goal is to try to get them behind screened-in enclosures, but it is not 100%, and it's really a function about whether we know about it up front or not.
Thank you. Any questions from
But
Board of
the
Staff?
design guidelines that you have there in front of you state that dumpsters should be screened from view.
And something I forgot to mention in my staff report, and I wanted to mention was, so this is the proposed, there we go. This is the proposed area in which the shipping container is going to be located, and the parking lot is slanted for drainage purposes. So a rather unique challenge of anchoring the shipping container where it's proposed to be located is that the concrete is slanted there for drainage. So that is something that can be addressed with the condition of the anchoring plans must be reviewed by the building official. But I just wanted to bring to your attention that this is where this is the current status of the proposed location, and we just wanted to note that it is that could be a challenge when placing the.
I think what we're trying to say is, in order for the storage container to be completely flush, it would either have to be shifted to the west or left into one of those parking stalls so it's on completely flat surface as it relates to the bottom, or way to the right where there's a slope. If you put it in the center where the V gutter is, then there's going to have to be something that would be done, some sort of bracing or supporting in the middle of the structure, because essentially there'll be an open space underneath the structure because it won't sit flat on the concrete. So we're just wanting to point that out, that it's a little unique here because of the slope due to the drainage, and so there could be a situation where there would be some sort of support or bracing in the center, and air and light and water could potentially pass under the container if it's centered on that that centerpiece there.
I do have one question too about the accessible parking spot that's there. Will the shipping container inhibit getting out of that spot or anything like that?
It shouldn't have any impact on that because it's going to be as far to the north as
Oh, I'm at the
as
wrong end of the
possible.
parking lot. Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah. So, yeah,
makes sense.
You're at the south end with that.
There we
and
go.
We're at the north end up next to the fence line.
Cool.
So, and again, we want to point out that these spaces are voluntary. They're not required. So, as many of you are familiar, in the zoning districts outside downtown, a business is required to provide certain number of spaces based on their square footage or their occupancy. That is not the case with the yard. These are provided voluntarily, so there's no set number that they have to maintain.
One other question of staff. One of the denial reasons was using this accessory structures compatibility checklist, which appears to be it's mostly related to residential. Do you still think that's fair to use what we have, the residential guidelines, to use this as a...
We don't have specific guidelines in the downtown design review guidelines, so the best guidelines we can furnish you about what areas are considered compatible within the city of Salina is the guidelines that we have for residential storage buildings. And so that's your call as board members. You can say these are completely irrelevant because it only deals with compatibility in residential neighborhoods, and this isn't a residential neighborhood. We provided you that because those are the kind of considerations that go into compatibility from the standpoint of an accessory structure with the principal structure. So that's when we're using those, we're looking at an existing dwelling or home on a property, and we're looking at the garage or the storage building that's proposed to be put up, and try to make sure for the benefit of the surrounding neighborhood that it's architecturally compatible and compatible with color and other things. And you can decide that that's completely irrelevant to you because there's not anything specific in the design guidelines relating to accessory storage buildings because they're simply not that common downtown.
I do have a question for staff. So you talked about with the slope and there being space underneath, so water could get through there, and are you concerned about the potential for erosion of the container then that could cause issues?
No, we want to bring that to the applicant's attention just to make sure they've thought that through and that there are alternatives to make it flush, and that's to move it either direction. Our main concern is if you're most, I can only use my own property as an example, but I have a concrete slab in my backyard. It's absolutely level. I've had it surveyed. It has no slope in it at all, and my storage building is tied down and anchored to it, and it sits exactly flush. There's not slightest gap between the floor of my storage building. The concern here is if when you have a V like that, you have a span. Mm-hmm. And so depending on what's stored in there and the characteristics of the container, we're simply pointing out that there might need to be some sort of support put in the center portion to keep it supported so that it doesn't sag. And then it's up to them to judge whether they want water passing underneath it, and because a lot of these storage containers have wooden floors. And so that's a judgment for them to make. We are simply pointing that out, that placing something like this on a concrete surface that's not flat has some considerations. It's probably not relevant to your review or decision making. We just want to point that out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just full of questions. I appreciate the patience of the applicant. One more, I think. We'll see. And now, there it is. Not that common. That's encouraging. If we were to recommend approval of this, what do we need to be cognizant of on the rest of the C4 district? What else? Be careful what you ask for, per se.
Well, I think, obviously, if you look at the majority of the C4 district, and if you look at the majority of the C4 district, most businesses and properties don't have their own parking lot, because, especially along Santa Fe, but even the other blocks, you have buildings that cover 100% of the property. So there's no room on the property. And some, they might back up to a parking lot, but that parking lot's owned by the city, or they might be next to a plaza, but that plaza's owned by the city. So when you look at the downtown district as a whole, there's not that many properties that have their own private parking lot or private area where they can put a storage building. The Sonic Drive-In isn't even it's in the bid area, but it's not even part of the C4 zone portion. So, Sunflower Bank is an example. They have a building that don't have zero setbacks, and they have some private parking. But the majority of the downtown is lot line to lot line building, and most of the parking areas are publicly owned, and you don't have to worry about storage buildings going up on public parking lots. So the question is, it was somewhat similar to the question we had with the external painting, and that is, can you make findings that sufficiently distinguish the situation the yard is in as it compared to other downtown or C4 zoned properties? And I think what we did our best to do in our staff report was give you alternate findings so that you can go either direction, and you can supplement those in any way that you see fit. But the idea in our staff report was, here are findings that would set the yard apart so it doesn't become a precedent for other locations. Our thought process, which hopefully is your thought process, is that if you say yes here, are you painting yourself in a corner so that you can't say no to a different situation? And I don't think that is the case here, and that's how we've tried to structure our report, is to give those options, and you will be the judge of that. But we tried to prepare findings you could make that would say it's okay in this context, but maybe not in this other context. You'll have to be the judge whether the findings. I think one thing that we didn't maybe note in there that we've talked about is that the yard doesn't cover 100% of its lot, and it has its own private parking, and so that's a factor that distinguishes this from other downtown properties. And that could have been included as a finding in our report as well. So that is something that you could make note of if you want. But
All right. Any other
because
questions?
you have an idea where you want to go, and you are concerned that maybe the findings that are in the report aren't quite there, then just let us know, and we can work with you to try to articulate something in addition. So,
All right. Any other questions of staff from the board? All right. I will invite the applicant up if they would like. And please state your name as well.
Sorry, I'm going to blind you guys up here. Brian Guyette, manager of the yard. Thank you guys for having me today. Appreciate it.
Would you like us to fire questions away, or did you have any answers to some of the questions? I know a lot's been talked about.
Yes, and if you guys want to fire away, honest, transparently, I first time here, so uneducated when it comes to what these meetings look like. So if you would take the lead, that would be helpful for me.
The first one being the container being in the middle on a pitched area. Do you agree with that? You've probably seen that. Obviously.
Yeah, that has been discussed, and what I've been told is that the floor structure of that container, and I believe that I have the layout or the engineering of that, the container, that it's built strong enough to withhold, to have that clear span in the middle. But I'm also not opposed to moving it to a flat part of the parking lot too, if that presents a problem for getting approval. So,
Is there a reason why you want it in the middle?
not really. I was basically just trying
Sure.
I like to have things centered, I guess, just in my own mind. And when I was trying to find the best location for it, that also allows us to maintain all of the parking stalls. If we were to move it clear to the west, I think we would lose that furthest northwest parking stall. So centering it allows us to still keep the same amount.
And there's a gate there, correct, as well?
Yes, yeah, and how the length of the building, it actually worked out pretty well. We just missed that gate, and it swings in, so we wouldn't have to worry about it hitting that storage building if we were to open it.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? All right. It's quick and easy.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Open it up to comments from interested citizens. We've got a couple.
Mr. Manley, do you mind? I have one more thing,
Yes,
if you don't
go
mind.
ahead.
The talk about the trash, was that a very subtle way of saying that I might need to enclose my trash dumpster?
I don't know. I don't know if you have a trash dumpster on your property. I didn't see it in any of the photos, but that's generally something that we work with individual properties. A lot of the businesses downtown have put their trash containers in city-owned trash corrals in the public parking lots. We don't have that situation here, but as a general rule, if you have your own independent dumpster, it should have screening around it, but I'm not familiar enough with the site or haven't seen any photos to have a comment on that.
So I could tell you I did have just a small trash dumpster put clear to the northwest corner of that same parking lot that we're talking about, the storage structure. And it does not at this time have any screening or anything around it. So I just wanted to throw that out there
There's an
and
inner photo.
put the cart
Can we
before the
put a
horse a little
photo
bit
up?
maybe. And
No, I was driving around the city looking at other metal containers. I kind of lumped them all together and to see how aesthetically pleasing they were versus the black storage container that you're proposing. So it wasn't picking on you. It was just
Yeah,
looking at
yeah.
what else do we have out there.
for sure. And the paint for that building specifically was to match the current aesthetic of that corner. As the bullpen building on the corner of 4th and Walnut, the siding is black. Also metal trim with black, as well as our infield structure. All of the columns are painted black. It does have a metal roof, metal chain link. So everything around that area. And also the only natural brick that is visible on the building is the south side of the north building that has the mural currently painted on it. Everything else, there is no visible natural brick on our location. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
yeah, thanks for your time.
To clarify, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Is the area where I have my cursor, is this where the trash enclosure or the trash dumpster currently is?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, I will open it up to comments from interested citizens. I got a couple in the audience, and I don't know who we have on the line.
We do have Miss Bishop from SDI online and Tiffany with Gleason online.
Okay. All right, hearing none, I will close that section, bring it back to the board for discussion and/or action. Anybody have a motion either way? I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Make a motion.
All right, I'll take a stab at this. I am recommending approval. I forget what option that is, option 1. I don't think it's necessarily fair to include the residential guidelines. I know you were using it. I understand why staff pulled it out, but some of the specific items in there weren't necessarily fair. The principal residential dwelling, I know that is brick, but they also have a substantial steel structure right next to it. So I think and steel and brick complement each other. So I think that plays into here as well. The location of the container being recessed, and when you're driving down that street, it's very tucked away, and so it's not very prominent. In a prominent location, I will preface that I think we need to, with this, the condition is I don't think it needs to be centered. I think you're asking for trouble there, getting animals underneath there. Probably steel structure would handle it, assuming it's got a steel floor to it, but yeah, animals and water and debris. I would recommend that we would move it as a condition. Let's see here. I read in the write-up as well as how the area reads. It fits. Like, you take a look at the rendering of the container, and you could easily put a container in other locations. It doesn't necessarily fit. When you look at it, it doesn't look like it doesn't belong. It just doesn't go on my radar. So that's why I'm recommending option 1 with the condition that I do think we need to shift it one way or the other.
And just real quick before we keep
Get on
going, Leslie Bishop with SDI commented, I think we might be having some audio issues with the Zoom, but she did comment, and Brian, you might be able to answer. She asked, is the shipping container big enough for the growth of the yard? So I don't know if you want to, is the shipping container big enough to capacity to hold the storage for your operation? So.
Yes, that's a great question. And we do have a small indoor area for storage as well. The purpose of the shipping container was to house our bigger pieces of equipment like a turf groomer, sanitizer, mounds that are 10 foot wide by 4 foot tall. So really, we don't have available access to storage for more of our heftier pieces of equipment that we use to maintain the yard. So yes, once we have those pieces of equipment, it's pretty much a one and done. We're not needing them again, so,
Gotcha.
or more of them.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last piece of my continuing motion that will never end is the private parking lot. I think that's needs to be in the minutes as well.
Should we also include the anchoring plans?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we should.
Yep, the anchoring to make it a structure.
That they need to be approved by the building official.
Yep.
Yeah. I think we probably need to include too that if there's any significant changes, they need to come back for review.
Agreed.
I'll second.
All right, it is moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.
For Mr. Guyette's benefit, he'll be working with Mr. Homan, Sean Homan, the building official, on the anchoring piece of that. But Yeah, Sean.
I'll send you an email. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to item 3.2.
Yes. Item 3.2, application CC 24-19, filed by Gleason and Sons Signs on behalf of Salina Selfie Station, requesting approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow the installation of a new illuminated wall sign on the front facade of a building located on the east side of South Santa Fe Avenue, south of Iron Avenue, and the address for this property is 111 South Santa Fe Avenue. And I will be presenting the staff report for this one as well. So the underlying building at 111 South Santa Fe is part of a large commercial block that was designed by C.G. Wilmarth and built in 1878. The overall building contained 3 25-foot bays, addresses 111, 113, and 115 South Santa Fe. The building at 111 is faced with white and green glazed brick in an Art Deco style, and a metal canopy and projecting sign for the McCoy bookstore was removed in 2003. At the time of this removal, it uncovered the original prism glass transom and storefront lintel, which to staff's understanding remains in poor condition, which is then why the current awning went up. A certificate of compatibility was submitted to the Development Services Department on October 30th, 2003 by Hauser and Associates to rehabilitate the interior and exterior of the two buildings at 109 and 111 South Santa Fe. At that time, the two buildings were linked with an opening in their common wall and only had one ground floor entrance. As part of this application, the previously joined floor spaces were separated, restroom facilities were constructed, and a new storefront opening was added to 111. Deteriorated bulkheads and display windows were replaced with new glass with ceramic mosaic tiles, and the two ground floor storefronts were completed and have been leased since that time. So on September 6, 2005, the City Planning Commission approved a conditional use permit to allow a piano bar and drinking establishment. The bar, the 111 Ultra Lounge, was located at this address from early 2007 until 2017 when they closed. On November 29, 2007, the Design Review Board met requesting the approval of the installation of a new fabric awning and sign system on the west facade of the 111 South Santa Fe property. The black fabric awning, as seen in the photo, would cover the storefront lintel and transom and feature the logo of the 111 Ultra Lounge, the business operating at the time. Additionally, the awning features 4 gooseneck lamps that would help to illuminate the logo on the awning. In early 2018, Whiskey Road Antiques and Collectibles opened at this address. According to Street View images from this time, the existing black awning was removed or modified and replaced with the green awning that is still in place today. Staff has no record of the change in the awning, and this modification was not brought to the Design Review Board for review and approval. In addition to the changing of the awning, the decorative ceramic mosaic tiles at the bottom, which if we go back to the 2000, the old, I think we have one from the old building, maybe that one. Yeah, you can see in there that the mosaic tiles had a design to them at some point after the closing of the 111 Ultra Lounge. Those were painted. Staff is uncertain when that work was completed and whether the painting could be reversed in any way. We just wanted to note those 2 modifications to the building. But following the closing of Whiskey Road Antiques, Strite Sandblasting operated there until early 2024, and now Salina Selfie Station is located at this address. So the building has a new tenant, Salina Selfie Station, and Gleason and Sons Signs has applied for a sign permit to install a wall sign above the building entrance. Because this property is located within the Business Improvement District, review and approval of the proposed wall sign is required by the Design Review Board. So the Design Review Board is authorized to grant a certificate of compatibility if, upon a vote of a majority of its members, it's found to comply with the policies and guidelines contained in the design guidelines for downtown Salina. So on page 3 of your staff report, you can find what the design guidelines have to say about signage. We just wanted to note that A13 and A13.1, that if internal illumination is used, it should be designed to be subordinate to the overall building composition, and if internal illumination is used, a system that backlights sign text only is preferred. So the applicant in this case is proposing to install a new wall sign to reflect a change in occupancy. Based on the sign elevation, the sign will have a white vinyl sign face with black lettering and the Salina Selfie Station logo encased in a black sign cabinet. The proposed sign appears to be where the existing awning is located, and staff would request more information on the status of the awning as well as the condition of the building facade below the awning. This is a photo of looking up at the awning. I went out and took photos of the building, and as you can see, I'm not sure of the condition behind the awning. The sign contractor might have that information. We just wanted to note it's not visible what it looks like behind the awning. So, the building at 111 South Santa Fe has 25 feet of frontage on Santa Fe. The sign cabinet for the proposed sign will be 4 feet tall and 10.5 feet wide, which staff believes is proportionate to and in scale with the 25-foot building facade. And staff does not believe the size of the sign will dominate the front facade of the building. The C4 Central Business District sign regulations allow up to 3 square feet of sign area per lineal foot of street frontage, with 66% of that sign allowance allowed on any one street frontage, which means up to 75 feet could be allowed on the building, with 50 square feet of that being allowed on any frontage. And then the C4 sign regulations allow a maximum of 4 signs per business and 10 signs per zoning law. So in both cases, this sign would conform to the C4 sign regulations. Staff would note that a similar sign was proposed by Gleason and Son Signs on the property to the south at 115 South Santa Fe. This sign was not approved by the design review board, but the board later approved an alternate design that conformed with the design guidelines. I think we do have those photos for the chiropractic. Oh, gotcha. You're good. So we'll keep going through staff analysis and okay. But staff is concerned about the proposed method of illumination. The sign permit application indicates that the proposed sign cabinet will have internal illumination. Illuminated signs are permitted in the C4, but the downtown design guidelines express a preference for backlit signs or signs that are modified. So here on the screen, you can see a photo of the awning of the building without the awning. So this would have been
the condition behind the awning.
Yeah, this would be a photo of the condition behind the awning, to staff's understanding. So,
Is this a current photo, or is this from, the awning's still there?
This would have been when
This is before the 111 Ultra Lounge.
the black awning went up,
So this
2007.
This dates from when McCoy's Christian Books took their sign down and before the 111 Ultra Lounge put up the black awning. And the reason for showing this is on the building next door to the south, or the building to the south, the sign contractor was not able to mount the sign there because of the glass, prism glass, or the glass block prism glass. And so the sign had to be anchored below and above that. And our question is whether Gleason and Son Signs knows what's behind the awning to know whether it's even feasible to mount a sign in that location. So I'll let Gage go back to his questions and comments about illumination, but this was dealt with by the board in a similar case on the property directly to the south where Salina Chiropractic is.
Thank you, Dean. As we were discussing the proposed method of illumination, so while internally illuminated signs are permitted. The design guidelines express a preference for backlit signs or signs that are modified so that only the letters and logos are illuminated and the rest of the sign cabinet remains opaque. So staff would ask for more clarification on how exactly this sign intends to be illuminated. This is the, as Mr. Andrew mentioned, Salina Chiropractic. So the image before, sorry, Dustin. So this was what was proposed for Salina Chiropractic. When they came to the design review board. It's very similar to what is being proposed for Salina Selfie Station, a white sign cabinet or white sign face with the letters and the logo. At that time, the design review board denied that sign, and then a revised sign was brought back to the design review board, which this photo was taken today. This is what the sign at Salina Chiropractic currently looks like. So when it is lit up, the light does not shine through the black, but rather just the logo and the Salina Chiropractic letters. And we have examples of signs throughout, signs that you all have seen and heard that are examples of illumination methods that are encouraged in downtown Salina. So in addition to illumination, we would just again note we are concerned about the condition of the facade behind the existing awning, as both the renderings show both renderings that were provided by the sign contractor show different states of what might be behind the awnings. So we would request that the sign contractor indicate whether they're proposing to modify the facade as indicated on their sign elevation or how they plan on hanging or attaching the proposed sign. So in review for compliance with the design guidelines for downtown Salina, it appears to staff the following findings can be made to support approval of the proposed wall sign. The proposed wall sign will be coordinated with the overall facade composition. While the internal sign is internally illuminated, if it is modified to be backlit, we believe it'll be subordinate with the overall building facade. The proposed sign will utilize a white sign face in its current state and black lettering that would complement the building materials used. And the proposed sign will make the building more recognizable for motorists and pedestrians on Santa Fe. And it does conform with the sign size limitations in the C4 zoning district. It appears to staff the following findings could be made to support denial of the proposed illuminated wall sign. The downtown design guidelines express a preference for backlit signs, and the majority of the wall signs in the 100 block of South Santa Fe are non-illuminated signs. And illumination of the entire sign panel is discouraged. And then portions of the exterior facade of the building remain in poor condition, and the existing awning is currently covering those portions, so removal of that awning could further damage the original prism glass transom, which is one of the character-defining features of the building. And finally, it is staff's understanding that the sign contractor has not taken existing structural and architectural conditions into account, but they might be able to speak on that in a moment. The board would have the following alternatives when it comes to this application. You could approve the application upon finding the proposed sign will conform with the design guidelines. You could approve the application subject to any conditions approved by a majority of the design review board members. You could postpone consideration of the application in order to acquire additional information, or you could deny the application upon making findings of fact for reasons of denial. Staff would request more information on the illumination method of the sign, as well as the location of the proposed sign, and we would additionally request information and clarification on the condition of the exterior facade. However, if the board wishes to approve the application as submitted, staff would recommend that any action contain the following condition of approval, that if there are any changes, it'll be brought back to the board for action. And with that, staff's available for any questions. And the business owner is here, and then there's a representative from Gleason on Zoom who we might have challenges hearing from, but they could message the message to communicate. So,
Good.
Guess I would just add, one more thing to the report. When questions have been asked or come up, why do the downtown design guidelines require design review board review before a building owner or occupant does exterior painting of their front facade? This building is exactly why that was in there, because the mosaic tile that's at the base below the windows and the bulkhead, that is a character defining feature, architectural feature of this building, and the purpose of the review of exterior painting is to make sure that that exterior painting doesn't cover up or remove a character defining feature, and that is what has occurred here with the painting. And so I think Dustin has those photos that could be put back up again, but if you have the see the photo rendering of the green mosaic tile, and with the green mosaic tile that's at the upper portion of the building, that is part of what makes the architectural character of this building. So that is what it could or should look like. And so the prohibition on exterior painting of front facades without design review board review and approval is designed to avoid situations like this. And that did in fact occur. We don't know exactly when it occurred or who, but that is what it's designed to avoid. And then the other point being is that when we looked at the sign being proposed for Salina Selfie, we immediately looked at the sign that was originally proposed for Salina Chiropractic. And so I don't know if Dustin can put those up side by side again, but the sign, the white sign with the entire cabinet illuminated in white, is what the design guidelines discourage. And this type of sign where only the letters and logo are illuminated is what the design guidelines encourage downtown. So that's kind of your side-by-side comparison.
Can you recall who, was it Gleason that did this one?
Yeah, it was Gleason
Yes.
that did this one, yes.
Okay. All right. I do not have any other questions of staff. All right. I will welcome the applicant to come to the podium and please state your name.
Hello, I'm Josh Tellefson with Salina Selfie Station.
Hello. You want us to fire away with questions?
Go ahead.
All right. Is this the first time you've seen what's behind that awning? How do you plan to attack what's behind the awning, regardless of the sign?
So I did remove the bird netting, kind of poked my head up there and took some pictures. We didn't get those in the report, but it looks to be in similar, or I would say better condition than Salina Chiropractic. It is unpainted. Looks all original, so there's some that the beam has some rust on it, and but the glass all looks to be intact. I would propose that we do similar to Salina Chiropractic and paint it if acceptable, or however the board deems best for that. But it seemed like it was in okay condition.
Okay.
Would the sign actually be mounted to the metal beam then?
I think it would be probably the exact same as Salina Chiropractic. I think they have some steel members connected to the beam that drop down that the sign connects to.
Because one of the things that was discussed at Salina Chiropractic is it's not practical to attach or mount the sign to the prism glass, and so you can essentially run connectors down from the metal beam and essentially hang the sign from the metal beam and not have to touch the the prism glass, and I think that was the method that was used. But we could not tell from the drawings submitted by Gleason how they proposed to attach the sign, and so that was part of the reason for our questions.
I think it may have been in the description and on the application. Last sentence of the description on the application.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says sign will be bolted to the steel beam with steel angle iron to the back of the cabinet installed with 3/8-inch angle iron and 5-inch lag bolts. So, and that is something our building staff does review whenever we get a sign permit. So.
I do have a question on that steel beam. If it is rusty or rust colored, what's the plan for that to make it more aesthetically pleasing?
To be painted, to clean off all the surface rust, and to prime and repaint it.
Would be painted black.
Probably, to be, similar to Sonic Chiropractic, probably.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, black or white, or the green. I don't know, whatever the design review board thinks would be best. But
I don't know about green, but
I was just saying that the green to match that mosaic that was below and the brick up above. But yeah.
In regard to internal illumination, I assume the sign is planning on being internally illuminated.
Yep.
And not speaking for the board, but that will probably be denied just because of our guidelines. That's the definition of, we don't allow that white sign to be illuminated.
Yep, and also I think in the description, I think the picture may not match the description that was included because it is the intent to make it probably either black or gray, and where the white is. And so I think the picture, the image of the sign may not be reflecting that description correctly, but it is the intent to.
I do have a message from Tiffany with Gleason. It says, I have to log off. However, the sign will be internally illuminated, but the letters and logo will be illuminated. The white background will have non-translucent vinyl applied to it. So it would be a push-through acrylic style sign, it is what it sounds like.
Okay. And the letters will remain black, or is that what you were saying?
Oh,
The
no,
letters,
they would,
they'd have to change colors.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
And staff would note, you had the Candiles sign a couple months ago. That was also a Gleason sign that had a white background. And one of the challenges of doing an opaque white is that it's rather difficult for light. I mean, it's rather easy for light to still come through on that sort of background. I live downtown. I've yet to see the Candile sign light. I'm not sure if that's because of the nature of the sign itself and the fact that it is white. But when the board is considering just wanted to note that there is an example recently of a white sign face that was supposed to be opaque.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much. All right, bringing it back to the board for further discussion or consideration for a motion.
I do think that we need to consider Slanted Chiropractic and what we decide, just because it would be more aesthetically pleasing to keep it similar, especially with the glass and the transom windows.
Okay. We have a motion.
I don't know how to move this, but I would like to see a rendering with sort of the final decisions.
What it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see.
So we could postpone it for a future date and have them bring it back.
We could do
Yeah,
that.
the option 3, postpone consideration, is certainly on the table. Are we gonna ask the applicant to remove the awning, or can we use the
I think we can use
image?
the images.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
And I think maybe, you said that you took some pictures, sir, inside, but you took some pictures of the glass. Do you think if we postpone this, you could bring those to us so we could get maybe current pictures of those? Okay. That way we don't have to worry about the awning being removed, but we can still see the current condition.
Okay.
So the motion on the table is we have to vote on this, is the option 3, postpone consideration, to get a new design or an applicable design of what exactly what you're proposing. And you bring updated photos, and you can also use the photos that staff have as well.
Do we have to include the date of a future meeting?
I believe we do.
Typically every 2 weeks.
So, since that's,
So we don't have a meeting on the 26th because of Christmas.
right.
And so I believe
The next meeting would be on January 9th.
Okay. So we'll aim for January 9th if that works for the applicant. If it doesn't, just reach out to staff and take it from there. That is a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to last 2 items. Item 3.3.
Yeah. So item 3.3, application 24-20, filed by Katie Kitchen on behalf of 1858 Properties, requesting approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow the demolition of a single-family dwelling located within the Salina Business Improvement District. And the address for this structure or this house is 216 East Mulberry Street. And Dustin Michelson will be presenting the staff report.
Thanks, Gage. So the property at 216 East Mulberry Street, our records indicate that it was constructed in approximately 1951 and is being proposed for demolition by 1858 Properties. This dwelling is a wood-framed, one-story structure with a building footprint of 814 square feet, and its current appraised valuation for the dwelling itself is $38,970. The corner lot that this dwelling occupies is 60 feet wide by 50 feet deep, so it's 3,000 square foot lot with 60 feet of frontage on East Mulberry Street. And the structure is not a designated heritage conservation property, nor is it located within a historic district. And the property is zoned R3 for multifamily residential and is not part of the C4 zone, Central Business District. 1858 Properties is the owner of the property, and it has filed this certificate of compatibility application to request approval for a demolition permit to allow the demolition and removal of the structure. And it's located at the southwest corner of Mulberry Street and South 4th Street. And the applicant states that the structure is no longer habitable and is in need of demolition. The proposed demolition would also include the detached storage structure shed located near the southwest corner of the dwelling, which the applicant states is encroaching on the adjacent lot and is in a similar condition to the dwelling. And the applicant has not submitted any plans for any replacement construction or reuse of the site at this time. Because, So as far as the design guidelines, the Design Review Board is authorized to grant a certificate of compatibility if, upon a vote of majority, the project is found to comply with the policies and contained in the design guidelines. So the design guidelines make the following recommendations in regard to demolition. Demolition should only be considered if a building, object, or structure, A, does not contribute to the historical or architectural character of the district, B, detracts from and does not have the potential to contribute to the importance of the district, and C, its removal and the proposed site restoration plan, including any plans for new construction on the site, will result in a more positive, appropriate visual effect on the district. The design guidelines for Salina state that the demolition of the building and structure located within the business improvement district should only be considered under the following conditions. If the, excuse me, if the city building official has ordered demolition for the public safety because of an unsafe or dangerous condition which constitutes an emergency, or if a building, object, or structure, this would be the same, fits the same characteristics I just outlined above, the three factors out of the design guidelines. In this case, the building official has not determined or declared this to be an unsafe or dangerous structure. However, the applicant states that it's no longer habitable and has provided a number of photos documenting its current state of disrepair, and there's trash and debris on the inside of the structure, and staff would request that the applicant provide additional detail about the existing exterior conditions or structural deterioration that make the structure uninhabitable, and why rehabilitation, repair, and or reuse of the structure is not a feasible alternative to demolition. The property is located at the southeastern fringe of the downtown business improvement district. Although many of the architectural features are still intact, due to its isolated location, this structure does not contribute significantly to the architectural or historical character of the downtown Salina or the surrounding neighborhood. The applicant's view is that the structure is obsolete and no longer fits in with their future vision for this property. Another factor for the board to consider is whether the redevelopment plan for the site would have a positive visual impact on the district, and the applicant has not submitted any plans for a replacement dwelling or building at this time. Following removal of the dwelling and the garage structures, this site would be restored to a grassy condition like similar to a larger plot of land also owned by 1858 Properties that's located on the northeast side of Mulberry Street and 4th Street. So just diagonal across the street, there's a larger piece of land that one of those structures has been demolished. The corner one came before the board earlier this year or last year. Yeah. Okay. So it would be in a similar state to those properties to the northeast there. And so staff would note that 1858 Properties land holdings on this block, as well as those on the north side of Mulberry Street between South 3rd and South 4th Street, are zoned R3, and any future redevelopment plans for the property would be submitted to the Design Review Board for review. Staff has a few suggested findings, and we believe that findings could be made in support of approval of the requested building demolition. Number one would be that the applicant has demonstrated that the condition of the structure is deteriorated to the point that it is no longer feasible to rehabilitate and reuse the existing structure. 2, the structure is obsolete and occupies only a small portion of a site that is being proposed for, or that may be proposed for future redevelopment. 3, the property is located at the edge of the downtown business improvement district and does not significantly contribute to the architectural or historical character of the district. And the board has the following alternatives to options here. Option 1 would be to approve the certificate of compatibility for the demolition of the structure at 216 East Mulberry based on staff's suggested findings that the proposed demolition will conform to the design guidelines for downtown Salina. Option 2 would be to approve the proposed demolition of the structure based upon staff suggested findings, subject to any conditions identified and approved by a majority of the Design Review Board. Option 3 would be to postpone consideration of the application to a future meeting date. And option 4 would be to deny the application as presented upon making findings that would support the denial of the proposed project. And if the applicant provides any additional information about the deteriorated condition of the structure and the inability of 1858 Properties to repair and rehabilitate the structure to the satisfaction of the board, staff would recommend alternative number 2, that the board authorize demolition of the structure subject to the following condition: that the site should be graded to a mowable and maintainable condition and shall be seeded or landscaped in a manner compatible with the adjoining buildings and landscape And with that, staff would be available for any questions, and we do have the applicant here to answer any, provide any other details.
Any questions from the board of staff? Okay, all right, we do have the applicant here. If you would like to answer any of the questions that staff had or add anything.
Katie Kitchen of 1858 Properties. Dustin, could you bring up the GIS again, please? What I would say is partly why this lot is not developable in its current form is it took an original lot and split it in half and put 2 houses on it. And partly why the encroachment of that outbuilding is happening is because there's not room for it, and there's not room even in a rehabilitation to put a garage or any sort of outbuilding that would support it. The exterior of the building, the roof would be a full replacement, and we haven't pulled to see if the underlayment would also be part of that. And as you could see, the interior of the house is in significant disrepair. So those circumstances, with those circumstances in mind, it is, it would take a higher amount of money to bring this house back into some usable form than anyone could ever get out of it, because of its disrepair. We have future plans for that whole area, including our investigations of a future hotel and multifamily housing. And so this is part of kind of preparing that for those future investments. But I don't have future plan of what that looks like because we don't know yet. So any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Does that answer the staff's questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any comments from the public or interested citizens? I guess I'll wait a moment.
We do not have anyone in the room from the public. The only public citizen we would have would be Ms. Bishop. She is present online, and she says that she has no comments.
All right, thank you very much. All right, bring it back to the board for a motion.
I would move for option 2 to approve the proposed demolition with the staff recommendation of the site being graded to a mobile and maintainable condition.
As moved, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, last item, item 3.4.
Awesome. Last item, application CC 24-21 filed by Katie Kitchen on behalf of Lighthouse Properties 3, requesting approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow exterior modifications to be made to the front patio located on the South Santa Fe Avenue sidewalk in front of Yaya's restaurant, and to allow a new outdoor patio to be added to the south side of Starbucks restaurant on the sidewalk adjacent to Mulberry Street. And Dustin Hers will be providing the staff report.
Thank you, Gage. So in January of 2020, the Design Review Board reviewed and approved an outdoor patio area for Yaya's along Santa Fe. That patio area was covered with black awning as well as fencing enclosing it so they could serve alcohol as part of their Yaya's restaurant. Also in January of 2020, Starbucks had a sidewalk dining area also reviewed and approved by the DRB, and that dining area was on the west side of Starbucks, and that area, because they did not serve alcohol, was not enclosed or fenced in like Yaya's was. However, it did have a canopy that created a shade area and covered the dining area. Now, Yaya's and Starbucks are requesting modifications and amendments to their outdoor dining areas, and I will walk through those with you. So Yaya's is looking to add a drop-down vinyl screening system, and that vinyl screening system will consist of multiple parts. So you'll have a camel-colored or beigeish cream-colored vinyl with clear windows, large clear windows that could drop down in instances where either the weather is chillier and colder, or there's more wind than normal, to increase the comfort of the patrons and customers of Yaya's. In addition to the vinyl drop downs, there will also be a black sheer drop down that can be dropped down for shade in situations where the sun may be more intense and shining in, to create a more comfortable area and reduce the heat from the sun as well. In addition to the vinyl drop down and the sheer drop down, there will also be a full new man door that would be constructed, and the purpose of that is for egress purposes, in order to create a safe egress, because you can't have the vinyl drop downs with a zip up and opening and a gate for egress purposes in emergency situations. You have to have a full door with panic hardware, and so there will be a full door that would be added in addition to the vinyl drop downs. On the Starbucks side, Starbucks is proposing an outdoor area that would be on the south side, and even though it would project out from the current face of the hotel building along Mulberry, it still would be on private property. So on the south side, there is about 16 feet of private property that the hotel still owns, and this patio area would be in that area. This patio area would consist of a metal fencing enclosure, and it also would have black vertical railings similar to what Yaya's would have, and the vinyl drop downs would be green, a Starbucks green with large vinyl window openings. It also would have a secondary sheer shade system that would drop down and to dissipate the sun rays and the sunlight as well. And so with those modifications, none of the modifications are changing any of the character defining features of the hotel building. And so staff does have a number of findings on page 7 that you could review. And with those, staff would propose the different options here. Option 1 is to approve the Yaya's and Starbucks application and plans upon finding that the proposed design of the covered patios conforms to the design guidelines of the downtown Salina. Option 2, you could approve the certificate of compatibility application and plans subject to any conditions or revisions that you see necessary. You could postpone consideration if additional information is needed, or you could deny the application upon making findings of fact and the reasons for that denial. And staff would recommend option 2 with a condition that we've listed on page 8, and that is if Yaya's or Starbucks makes any significant changes to the design, color, or materials of the covered patios presented to the DRB, these will be presented to the board's administrative staff to determine whether or not additional review by the board is going to be needed. With that, we would take any questions that you might have.
One of my questions, I noticed the Starbucks area did not have an exterior egress door. Is there a reason why these are considered different?
It will, I believe it does have an egress door, but we do have Ms. Kitchen here to answer that. I believe both the Starbucks and the Yaya's will have similar doors that are going to be part of the project.
Yeah, so right now in the plans, there isn't a door on the exterior. We are waiting to see. We'll work with the fire marshal to determine whether or not an exterior, we will be adding, the plan is to add a door directly from the restaurant area into the patio space. And whether or not there's a requirement of another door is yet to be determined.
Okay.
But it would be handled very similarly to what's happening at the Yaya's patio. If that were the case, it would be the same door.
Okay. One other question for the applicant. I notice on the site plan it has the yellow on the corner. Is that just not
The yellow on the corner.
how it's?
I can look?
You may approach the bench.
Okay, yes. So that yellow is actually the current licensed area for the tables and chairs that are there now. That is not the footprint we're planning on continuing.
Okay. Those are my 2 questions. Any other questions of the applicant or staff?
I have none.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from interested citizens? From Leslie?
No, Ms. Bishop indicated that she does not have anything to add.
All right, thank you, Leslie. All right, bring it back to the board for a motion.
I move that we approve option 2, that if there's any significant changes that be brought back to the board.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience this evening. Any administrative items or preliminary discussion items?
And we do not have any administrative items or preliminary discussion items for you tonight. We would just note we will not have a meeting on the 26th. We hope you all have a happy holidays and a happy new year. We will have a meeting on January 9th. Hopefully the Salinas Selfie Station sign will come back at that time. Also, annually, we do an annual report for all of our boards that talk about the work we did in the last year. As you can see, we did 21 items for the Design Review Board. Dustin and Dean could talk more about this, but the DRB used to not be a super happening board, but now yearly it is, and there's a lot of growth in downtown. So we will have our annual report at that meeting to describe to you what work you did over the last year.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if we can set a record of 21
I believe
items.
the record is around 28, if I remember right. But 21 is still a lot. It is a lot.
All right, any unfinished business? All right, public forum. Leslie, anything for today? All right, hearing none. Motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.